the Father through Jesus the Son, and give him the glory, great things he has done. Let's sing hymn number 281. I gave my life for thee, my precious blood I shed, that thou must ransom me, and quicken from the dead. I gave my life for thee. What hast thou given for me? I gave my life for thee. What hast thou given for me? My Father's house of light, my glory sacred throne, I led for earthly night, for wandering sad and lone. I left it all for thee, what thou left out for me. I left it all for thee, hast thou left out for me.
I suffered much for thee,
More than my tongue can tell, of bitterest agony, to rescue thee from hell. I've borne it all for thee. What hast thou borne for me? I've borne it all for thee. What hast thou borne for me?
Let us pray. Our loving Father, this afternoon, we come to Thee in a special afternoon when we listen to your servant as she speaks to us from her personal experience, the journeys you've taken her through, the difficulties you have helped her go through, that, Lord, we may be encouraged as your children, as your servant, that we can also, through your name, be able to serve our country. May God bless us in Jesus' name. Amen. Good afternoon. This afternoon again we are privileged. We are privileged to have our guest speak to us from her experience. It is always important for us to hear from those that have swum in the waters. Personally, I can never tell you or teach you on what happens when you're in the water because I haven't been there. But she is going to tell us how she started, how she has been, and how she is. And we pray that the Lord will use her to inform us on how best we can be. Right Honorable, you're welcome. Are you giving us back this mic? Thank you.
Good afternoon, church. Hope you've had a wonderful lunch and stretching the legs for the period since we were here and now we are back. Elder Zirumwabagabo told me to talk about politics and Christianity. And those are two things that have defined my life for the last 3 decades. And I can authoritatively talk about politics. This year, I have clocked 30 years in public life. I started public life when I was a first-year student at the university, just as an enthusiastic student who wanted to participate in that which I felt I was passionate about. So we started as young people in our first year. That's where we started the Uganda Young Democrats. First of all, we started with political debates. I can say with debates because I didn't know they were political. But one thing led to the other and we found ourselves in political activism. And as they say, the rest is history. But that aside, because even Makerere is known to the foundation, I was telling Elder Zirumwabagaba and the team there that there is no church I know on the planet Earth that prepares leaders more than the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's not there because we start from the children church, Pathfinder, and all those other categories that we go through, and then we find ourselves in SDA schools that prepare us. For me, I can tell you comfortably that the foundations of my political journey are from Light College, Katikamu, where I studied from. And as a student in Senior 3, I was able to preach during chapel to a congregation of 1,000 students. Because politics is about expression of your interests and your views. Now I didn't know how I was picked, but one thing I knew, I was active in debates. And at that time, the president of the Central Uganda Conference, Bishop Samuel Kajoba, was the chaplain of Light College, Katikamu. So he picked me one time and said, you come and preach, and I was like, it's impossible. Preaching? First of all, I come from a non-Adventist family. And I became an Adventist through a week of prayer, still at Light College, Katikamu. And it took me time to even inform my parents because they were very harsh. But later on, I was like, I can't hide it anymore. So I told them I was baptized, and I was the first in our family to be baptized. Today we have over 20 members of our family that are SDA. And I always tell them that 20 years, 30 years from now, they will ask where the non-SDAs came from. Because it's like we are taking over and influencing a few things here and there. So when Pastor Kajoba told me to go and preach, and the time for the chapel bell was about to come, I went to him and said, I can't preach. I am feeling headache. It's total unbearable. He said, you take water. He took me to the sick bed. They gave me some tablets, but actually the headache was not there. I was just fearing to speak before people. And when I finished the first sermon, he said, you have made a very wonderful sermon. And I was like, okay. And the next day, one thing led to the other, and I became the chapel prefect. So meaning that I learned the art of public speaking and communication from an SDA environment. So when I reached Makerere University and I would see fellow students, and particularly girls at the time, that was 95, I was in Makerere from 95 to 98. And girls at that time would even fear to speak in a congregation like this, leave alone this generation where this kind of leadership, the NRM leadership that has brought women up to feel that they can also participate regardless of anything. So when I reached Makerere and I just found some level of different activism, though, there were debates, I started participating. But the very first debate that I went to, and you know, when they were to put debates there, they would pin posters around. That was the time when the Constitution of Uganda was being made, the 1995 Constitution. And the motion was that the constitution-making process is a total flop and poses great danger to national unity, peace, and development. I even remember the motion. So I went with a friend of mine. It was in University Hall at Makerere. We sat, and when we reached there, we saw ministers on one side and then the opposition politicians on the other side, and they started debating. And just like today, I mean, students always want the negative vibe, the opposing vibe, not negative per se. So we found ourselves there. Now, when the main speakers finished, they opened the debate to the audience. And some young men, students, came up and spoke, and the moderator, the chairman of the debate, was like, is there any lady, any female coming up? So me, who did not have fear for public speaking, I put up my hand. And my friend who I had gone with, a lady also, put it down. It's like, ogenda kwogera bichiwano. And as she put this one down, I put this one up. And it was seen. I contributed. And after 2 weeks, of course, when I measured myself, I said, I'm Rose Namayanja, BA1. They're like, fresher. So later on, after my submission, and that level of confidence that we get from church. In our church in Najanankumbi, whenever a team is constituted to go to the pulpit for divine, there is always a member of the children's church. So you can imagine a 9-year-old standing before a congregation in Najanankumbi and says, Happy Sabbath, church, tubikule ekitabo kyaffe ekyennyimba oluyimba namba 9. That child grows as a leader. So I started with that just to show you where my politics started from and how I found myself in politics. So 2 weeks later, the person who was the chairman of the debate, found me at the Faculty of Arts Kodrang, and he's like, Dr. Semogerere is looking for you. And I was like, no, before that, actually after the debate, immediately after the debate, some gentleman came and is like, oh, which hall do you stay in? And I said I stay in Africa, room D9. But I didn't even know, I had never been to Africa. I didn't even know whether it has a room D9. But I was just fearing, I was like, these are security people maybe. Because in my debate I had hit government. So the man kept looking for D9, it was not there, and they didn't know anybody called Rose Namayanja. Because in any case, I was a non-resident. I was not resident in the university. So when Mr. Luzike Joseph is from Miti, and I was the chairman, LC5, is the one who was chairing the debate. He came to me, and then we went and met Dr. Semogedere, and that's how we started the Uganda Young Democrats. Out of that, later on, I contested for guild. I wanted to be a guild president in Makerere University. And the students were like, are you from Nabingo? I said, no. Namagunga? No. Budo, they talked about all the big schools. I said, no, but where are you from? I am from Katikamulait. Where is Katikamulait? In Masulita. They don't even know where Masulita is. So what I learned from that, and still this goes back to the foundation we get in the church. You grow up as a confident child, you have your self-esteem. So I didn't mind what other students, which schools they came from, because in any case, we all found ourselves at the university. So I contested for guild, I lost, but again I was appointed a guild minister for women affairs. I started attending major conferences, political conferences at national level. And then that's where I got, but that aside, I used to go and attend, because I had started now participating in political debates. I would go in the CA, in what we call the Strangers Gallery. Even today in Parliament, anybody is free to go and sit up there and watch the members of Parliament debating and talking. So when I would even cut lectures to go and sit in the Strangers Gallery. And while there, I would see women speaking, the likes of the late Cecilia Ogwal, Honorable Janet Mkwaya, Honorable Winnie Byanyima, Dr. Speciosa Kazibwe. And I was like, oh, you mean women have space here? So I got that kind of inspiration. And then I would also see young people. And I knew that young people and women can also be part of decision making. And to me, that awakened my political consciousness. And I started asking, how does one become a youth member of parliament? And they told me there's the Youth Council Act, where people are from the youth councils elect leaders. So I decided that I'll participate in youth council elections, which start from the village. Even right now, they are ongoing. There are youth council elections ongoing. So you start from the village, you go to the parish, to the sub-county, district level, and I said I want to be the chairperson of Luero District Youth Council. And I started and became one. I was the first ever female to become a district youth chairperson in the country. But even when I was going to contest, they were like, "Gwalio ulideyo muwala abera chairperson." Chairman, Bagala chairman, Ategwe, you are here. And my question was, does the law allow me to contest? Said yes, so I went in. And then later on, I contested for Youth MP Central Region. I contested with the people like Honorable Mpuga, Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, Honorable, Mr. This former chairman, Mbabali Jude, and others who were 9 people. I contested and I won. I became a chairperson, a member of parliament for youth. But that aside, There is nowhere at that level as a young leader that stopped me, because the moment I left Light College Katikamu, I joined Makerere, and in Makerere I found there Musda. You get it? So I became an active member of the Makerere University SDA Association, and there was no way I felt conflict or contradiction whatsoever. So every Sabbath I would either pray from Musda or the Adventist Center, because I had never prayed in a Luganda church. So there was no Luganda church I would go to, and the only thing that was near Light College Katikamu was KCC, the Kampala Central Church. So I used to pray from there, and even when I became an MP, I continued. Now what I can say before I go to politics and Christianity is that even when I became an MP, and this is to the young people here, you do not need much to be something. You do not, maybe I can put it differently, that your past cannot deter you to be anything. You don't look down upon yourself just because you come from a poor background. Masulita is even small. Actually, Masulita, by the time I reached Masulita, that was another elevation. Masulita was a totally different elevation because I was even in a boarding school. But I am born in Nakaseke. But during the war, we grew up in Woodlands near Katikamu SDA. As you know, there are two Katikamus. Now, during the war, of course, everything was spoiled and was destroyed. So we grew up at a village next to Katikamu. And what my mother used to do every day was to fry pancakes and bring it at Katikamu SDA during break time. And whenever the bell would ring, I would run to my mother to just make sure that nobody tampers with our capital. These children can steal mama's pancakes, and we face anarchy. So every day, whenever my mother could come at break time, together with her, we would sell pancakes. These are stories that we talk about, and if you asked Dr. Dalton Segawa and the many that were there at the time, they will tell my story better than I can tell it. And any pancakes that remained, I would personally hawk it in the village. I would personally take it to Woodlands. And the vehicle stops, you run with your basket of pancakes for people to buy. During the maize season and we are in holiday, I would move we would wake up at 3 a.m. to prepare steamed maize, kasoli omufumbe, and you put the basket on the head. When the smoke is already still coming out, by 7 you must be in Woodlands. There were these buses from Arua and northern Uganda who some didn't understand English, but you would say, maize, 300 and 400. And then you hear somebody say in a different language, maybe Luo. And then you hear somebody say, miyadek miyangwen. Katingananga, I just say, mayindi mzuri sana miyadek miyangwen, because that's what I... So, when people see us where we are, they never, some think we were born with a silver spoon in the mouth. But for me, that's my journey. From hawking pancakes, from hawking bananas, from hawking maize, from burning charcoal. If you go to a village called Ikande, it's just the next village after Katikamu, and you ask about Namayanja, they will tell you a story. But by God's grace, I have moved the journey thus far. From hawking pancakes, to being a youth member of parliament, to being a woman member of parliament in Nakaseke. The first time I contested, I was unopposed. The second time I contested, I won by 92%. I was appointed a Minister of State for World Triangle. I was a Minister of Information and National Guidance. I was a National Treasurer of the ruling NRM, and I'm now the Deputy Secretary General of the NRM. So you can see, I cannot say because I was very intelligent, because I was very strong, but it is by God's grace that one can move from nothing to everything, from nowhere to everywhere. And I speak about this because, I mean, you give God the glory. Because if you don't talk about it, then that means you are not even grateful for your journey. And maybe as you talk about this, there is a young man or a young woman who can be inspired, who think the world has come to an end, when actually there are others who are in worse situations than you are. And so one of the things that I do not compromise on religion is just by looking at my life's journey. It's by God's grace. So I give God what belongs to God, and Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Now, the question of whether you can be in politics and in Christianity at the same time, they are not mutually exclusive. Actually, one supports the other. If you are God-centered, you can do politics with ease. You can do politics with ease. But I want us to look at Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. There is this saying that politics is a dirty game. You've heard about it. But for me, I believe it's a dirty game because you clean people avoid it. The day we have people who are anchored by faith, then you will not have all these evils that befall us. Politics is very adversarial. It is very confrontational. It is played in the public realm, in the public light. It's not like you are doing your business in Chikubo. It's not like you have your legal chambers. It's not, but every step that you do. I was telling Elder Walugembe that if you want to know something that you didn't know about yourself, participate in politics. There is one MP, I think it was Kalungu East. An MP contested and lost, and there was a petition in court. And the petition was about his academic papers. And he used the name, there was a name in Muchibi Serunjoji. It was added on his Christian name. And I think the papers didn't have it. So he said, no, that is my name, I used it. They went up to Katigondo National Seminary, where he studied from. And when they brought the papers, he said, no, I used this name because it was my father's name. And the father had already died. So they had to go to the father's grave. They took a picture of the grave where they say Rose Namayanja, born, died, what. And they didn't find the name Seven George there. So you can imagine how far it can go. It's very, very adversarial. But we can live our faith, living our faith while shaping our society. Like I said in the morning, I can be a politician and do the politics, but when I'm God-fearing. When we participate in politics, you must make sure that people understand who you are. People understand what you believe in. People understand what you can do and what you cannot do. People understand what you eat and what you don't eat. Because like all of you, and by the way, there's nobody who said that a sin in politics is bigger or heavier than sinning while doing your business or eating people's money in the legal fraternity. It is all sin. And when Jesus said, "Let your light shine," he did not say that light should not shine in parliament. He did not say that light should not shine in cabinet or in a district council or district leadership or any political engagement. And when you look at us as politicians who are elected, what is so different from a permanent secretary? And you tell a permanent secretary that that's not politics, or an accountant or a commissioner, it's totally wrong. They actually do the heavy lifting. In public service, it is even worse than politicians. Because if you are talking about corruption, politicians don't even handle money. They don't. But you hear money is lost here, money is lost here, money is lost here. So I just want to say that there is no profession or field of leadership that we are not supposed to participate into. And I dare say that it is also cowardice on one part for somebody to say, there are so many temptations, I'm not going to go there. Where don't you find temptations? They are everywhere. But what is important is you knowing who you serve and allowing people to know who you serve. Like I said in the morning, when I was a Minister of Information, most of the hot talk shows happen on Saturday. Not so? Parliamentarian, Capital Gang, there are so many. Every media house has a talk show in the morning of Saturday. But they would call you on Saturday, because they know. They would look for NRM people to go on radio. One time they called the minister and said, we want you to come on radio. So you call Namayanja and Oyam 7 state ajakuja. And for sure you have never heard me, at least I go on talk shows, but you have never heard me on Capital Gang. If it is English, I know my English, really. So it is not English. And they know I will not go there and they don't even bother. You've never heard me on Parliamentarian. And they also know they can't get me. So it's about you sticking to what you believe in. When you come to my office and you bring a letter inviting Namayanja, they will first look at the date. My staff, they will first look at the date. In my constituency, they know when I used to be an MP, they would even change their dates or their days to fit my program. Like I said, for the 15 years I was an MP, I never attended a funeral rite. This is Kwabyalumbe. And like I told you, I was winning overwhelmingly. And I just decided on my own, after winning by 92%, I just said, Kati, I'm done with the elective politics. And here I am now, another 10 years, serving at national level and not going through the rigors of campaign politics. I only campaign for my boss, the president, and the NRM candidates. But, and when you keep letting people know, they will stand even where you are not. Like I said in the morning, when you enter the room, what energy do you bring in? Because at times it is our way of life that puts off people. I have said this year I am clocking 30 years in public life. And I thank God that I've not had major issues, whether financial, political, social, or otherwise. And it doesn't mean these temptations are not there. If I sat with you and told you what we go through in terms of working with people, in the morning I talked about people can even set you up, but in a way, God gets you off. My husband is contesting against Honorable Lutamaguzi. But in the last term, Lutamaguzi abused us to any abuse you can think of. If I were not a God-centered politician, you would hear flames. But I was like, let him abuse. When he's done, we shall take it from there. We shall do sane politics. He abused until when he could not abuse anymore. And we never retaliated, not even once. But I tell you what, the public was like, Auntie Abu Baseveni Day. Seriously, and they are now accusing him of Vuma Blisawa, you are abusing people. I don't have to abuse. I can disagree with you, but respectfully. That's all I know. There could be big things. I just want to share with you one instance. Just recently, the last 2 weeks, the president was going to, we called it expression of interest, to pick nomination papers. And they chose Saturday. So I was involved in the preparations up to Friday evening. And I told them I am not attending. They're like, no, this is a big thing. I'm like, however big it is, I am not coming. It is on Sabbath. And I was not there. And people were like calling, where are you, where are you? Those who were not part of the meeting. So they said he's going to return nomination papers on Friday. And later on they changed it to Saturday. And when we were in preparation meetings and he was there, after everybody spoke, I requested him to allow me not to attend, not because I am sick or not because I'm not around. I told him it is Sabbath. And he said, you know those Bachwanga, they don't read the Bible well, because Jesus said when your donkey falls in a pit, And I'm like, you don't plan for the donkey to fall. But these are planned what? Meetings and activities. And they respected me and take it in very good faith. That's what she believes in. And so she can, and still I did not attend. I also watched later on what transpired. So you can engage in politics as a Christian and remain faithful. But with caution, like I've said, there are temptations like anywhere, with the conviction on both sides. If I'm to talk about God, I'll talk about my God. If I'm to talk about the achievements of NRM, you can spend a whole day and night when I'm not yet done. So I do both with utmost conviction. And most importantly, you put Christ at the center of your work. There are biblical examples. Joseph was a prime minister in Egypt, and he saved nations. Esther was a queen in Persia, and he also saved God's people. Daniel was a leader, and Nehemiah was a royal official, and these are people that we read about in the Bible. But when people who know God refuse to participate in leadership or in politics, they create a vacuum for the others to come in. And then we begin complaining that government etuyambe, but you are also supposed to be there and lead the way. Otherwise, if we do not have godly people in government or in leadership, it's a recipe for corruption, oppression of the poor, decline of values, and all the evils that follow. The principles for Christians in politics: servant leadership. That's what we know Jesus for. You serve but don't rule. You remain uncompromised. You promote justice and equity. And most important also, you do not idolize power. There are people who become leaders, and leadership goes on top of their head, and you're like, when somebody is entering here, you might imagine, we also know ourselves, we know those people. So you don't idolize power. I can reach here on a border. No big deal. I can remain who I am, even when I am high up there. Because what I know is that God talks about humility. Humility in leadership is a virtue that all of us should espouse, whether it is church leadership, public service, civil society. It's all leadership, and there are basic principles that we must espouse. Otherwise, that's all I can say. I just want to call upon you who can participate in leadership to please do. It's we have members of parliament. There are 529 members of parliament, out of which I think the SDAs are 7. There are 2 church elders, Elder Nuwa Wanzala Mutebi from Nakasongola, and Elder Josephat Tumwesije from Bugangaiz. And the other MPs, Honorable Nantaba is there, Honorable Mire Babalanda, and Honorable Keyo from, I think, Namayingo. There are around 7 SDA politicians. So you come and help us preach to shine the light in parliament, to shine the light in cabinet and in all those spaces. I thank you so much.
I was going to say that we have been invited, then I realize I am not in that equation. So you've been invited to join Parliament. And by joining Parliament, there's a possibility to join Cabinet. And then we have a Mt.Olives member in Cabinet. Amen? Question is, how do you get there? Please don't go and sell Kabalagala and sell Memvu. It doesn't have to be that way. Honorable, we are very grateful for the experience you've shared, live experience. We'll take 3 or 4 questions. She's supposed to leave at 3:30. Yes. Do we have another microphone? Somebody give us a microphone. Mugisha, help us. They are here. You want to get a mobile one? Okay, meanwhile, yes. Tell us. Yes.
Your administration has Okay, let me repeat again. Thank you so much. I'm Andrew Kasumba. I am from Bunga Central, but we came here for a specific purpose, basically to see how Mt.Olives does the children's department. We are master guides in training. My question is, allow me to ask 2 questions. One is, you've encouraged us to join politics. So what do I expect, especially on the family bit of it, if my wife is a politician? What should I prepare for? And what should she prepare for if I'm to be a politician? Then the second question is, I have been in Chiriandongo for some good time, but sometimes it hurts me to see young people like they normally have these discos. You find ages of 13 going to discos. You find a girl of 16 years like having 3 children from different fathers. And I don't know even where to start. How do those people need sensitization to show the negativity and the positivity of what? Of keeping them so waiting until their useful life is what? Their productive life is earned. Thank you so much. May God bless you all.
That sounded like a social worker's question. Disco, 19, 3 children. The first question will be easy. Let's see another question. Any other question? Does it mean we are all prepared to go to Parliament? All right. All right. I was just wondering whether my wife has a question. Yes, Elder.
Thank you, Right Honorable, for that message. My question would be to the young people in these tough times of unemployment. Your experience, you were able to do what you could with your mother. If you could leave some 2-3 tips for this environment of unemployment and our young people, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Question is on unemployment, yes. There are 2 questions there, 2 people there.
Thank you so much. Happy Sabbath to everyone. Mine is rather very simple. Mine is like, Honorable, thank you so much for your submission. Mine goes like this. You've mentioned 7 members of parliament, and also you yourself with all the experience, 30 years plus. My question is, what is the critical mass, yeah, that we as Adventists need to be put into the national agenda? By critical mass, I mean, as you said, you program and you don't attend meetings on Sabbath. So what does it take for the cabinet to put into implementation the challenge of the Sabbath? We know how much our students, our brothers, our sisters suffer with school, academics, exams and all that on Sabbath. Like, how often have you talked to the president, since you're close to power, how often have you talked to the president about the issue of the Sabbath? Yeah, we have Muslims, we have Sunday, we have all the rest. Or you need a critical mass for you to implement that policy. Thank you so much. We just need some guidance. What does it take for the president to hear us out?
All right. Yes. Sabbath challenge.
Thank you, Honorable, for giving us the courage. My question is, when you analyze politics from out, you notice there are people who take politics as do or die, whereby they either win or you lose. That means even taking someone's life, whenever they are being squeezed to the corner with the truth, elimination is seemingly to be also things that people watch from out. What do you advise to this dark cloud that we really see in politics? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more question here. Oh, I see another one there. Okay, that will be the last one.
Thank you so much, Honorable, for that presentation. I first heard you from Muzda when you were presenting at CTF, and I've always been passionate about politics from a young age, but the problem is my teachers always talked me out of it because they wanted me to concentrate on academics. So when I got at campus, I tried to participate in different campaigns, but I never contested, mainly because I was scared of losing out on my academics. So can I know how you managed to navigate academics and then politics as well? Thank you.
All right. Lydia.
Thank you very much. We praise God for you, Honorable, letting the light shine where you are, and we continue to pray that God will protect you. My question is you said the percentage of SDA politician is really very small, but nevertheless, my question is that are there among those 7, are there compromising SDAs in the parliament? And if so, how do you overcome that? Because I know it will really it's a very big challenge for you who stands for God and standing with someone compromising the faith. How do you overcome that if they are there?
Can we save the Honorable from judging? Let's rephrase that question, because she's not going to judge her fellow members whether they compromise or not. Was that the question? Thank you. I think we'll skip that question. Come.
Spouses in politics, just like any other thing you do as spouses, if you are going to buy a new car, if you are going to buy a piece of land, don't you think and don't you sit and talk about it? And even decide which type of car or where to buy the land or which type of small business that you are going to start. It is the same with politics. From a Christian point of view, but even the non-Christians, you can't succeed if your spouse is not on your side. He's your first cheerleader. Whether it's the wife or the husband, you need the support of each other. Because how do you convince, if you fail to convince me as a wife that I'm going in politics, how will you convince the others? If I fail to convince my husband, how will I convince the others? So from my experience, my husband has been my cheerleader number one. Even when I go on radio, he has to listen to the talk shows and he will tell you, this one you did well, this one you didn't do well. You have heard of this concept, the term they call abaujo unyama. The other people will tell you it was very good, that was the best answer. There are very few people who will tell the emperor that you are naked. You finish speaking and said it was wonderful. It can only be your spouse to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. So for me, I have been able, my husband has supported me every step of the way. And as I left elective politics, he's in elective politics, and I support him every step of the way. So it's very, very important. What do you expect? It's about values. If you lead a value-based life, and you know that both of you as faithfuls, as Christians, you don't believe in corruption. See, if a wife or husband goes to politics and does that, it's of course negative. Other people say when women go in politics, they engage in extramarital affairs. It has been a big talk. But I want to tell you, first and foremost, that parliament you see is like a sack of beans. I'm just using the analogy of beans. If you have a sack or tin of beans and you put your hand like this and bring out, before sieving, you'll see the good beans, you'll see the ones which are spoiled. So parliament or politics is just a sample of our rotten society. In parliament there you'll find, because people grow up from different backgrounds. You'll find those of us from Kabalagala, you'll find the Plandi kids, you'll find those who have grown in different environments. So everything that is in the wider society somehow finds itself in parliament. So it basically depends on one's character. I always tell people that success in politics does not even depend on money. Character constitutes over 65% of one's success. So if somebody has been used to extramarital affairs even before joining politics, when they join, it's just a continuation of their lives, the way they have lived them. But on the other hand, I can say, yes, those social issues are there, but they are just a small fraction. It's only that when the bad thing comes out, it is very, very loud. But there are women we can talk about that have been in politics and have also maintained their marriages very, very comfortably. So that one, you need support of each other. For the kids, It's really back to our society. It's where we need to go, as of course government plays a part, civil society plays a part, churches also have missions there to engage not just the kids this time around, but also the parents. The tough times of unemployment. One of the reasons we have unemployment is because of the liberalization of the education sector. When we were leaving university, I left university, like I told you, in 1998. There were only 3,000 graduates. Today, every year, we produce over 400,000 graduates. There was only one university. Today, you have over 40 universities that bring out graduates from different disciplines. And that's the reason why government is changing the education curriculum. First of all, making sciences compulsory. When we were studying, a student would fight so hard to reach senior 2, go to senior 3 and drop sciences. But you know, these sciences are the practical subjects. You study Napoleon Bonaparte, you get out of school, Napoleon is not applied anywhere. Even the wars that we are, because Napoleon, I never did history, but I used to hear students say Napoleonic wars. The Napoleonic wars are no longer relevant in the wars of today. We are just talking about the war on terror. It's terrorism and the other cyber war and all those other things. So that's why government is trying to change the education curriculum at various levels and to give emphasis to science. When they raise the salary, of course it is supposed to be raised for all, but prioritizing science education is to encourage the young people. Right now we are seeing a spike in students taking science subjects because of that motivation. So, but the other thing now is skills. We are emphasizing skills. So I would encourage, not everybody has to do pancakes or anything, but I would encourage learning a skill, even when, by the way, you have a degree or a diploma. You must learn any skill. It's now becoming a prerequisite. Leave alone the soft skills, but also the hard skills. A lot can be done. But that aside, with the AI revolution, people are making money on their phones. The 10 richest people in the world, 8 of them are involved in AI. So for the young people, I would encourage, there are a lot of free courses online. Free courses, and I want to say that as a country, we have not exploited e-commerce to even 20%. Because if it is even developing a website, people used to spend a month, 2 months, but somebody can develop a website in 30 seconds. And it is done. Because templates are there, and you just pay $10 or $5 and you send somebody. We just need to encourage more of our young people in IT to really embrace that. Otherwise, a lot can be done in IT. If it were this time, there's no way I would go in pancakes, I would be in IT. The time somebody spends on social media, just because social media is scrolling on your timeline. And the funny bit with the social media is this aspect of algorithms. You click on something, the next time you refresh, you'll get 20 things connected to that one thing you scrolled. So if you spend your time scrolling on some of those e-commerce, AI issues and that kind of stuff, still you'll get a lot of information. For me, I still believe a lot can be done with AI. As of course, as government, the biggest thing we are now doing is industrialization. And when you see the president going to visit people who benefited in PDM, because somebody getting 1 million shillings, cheap and patient capital, less than 10% and paid in 2 years, that cannot be compared to a commercial loan or a money lender. And people are moving with starting rearing chicken, starting tailoring, adding on what they have in the plumbing business. Really, a lot is being done. For the young people, they may not be here, but even here, tell me a trading center where there is no stall for Rolex or H Commando. Chikumi in Makerere. A stall of H Commando requires between 400 to 800,000 shillings, including the tools and the capital. So many people are getting, slowly but surely, they keep improving. The critical mass. Yes, we have raised this issue of Sabbath, but let's remember where we have come from. At one time, Edazil Mwabagabo can bear with me, Seventh-day Adventist faith was banned. Under the Idi Amin regime, it was criminal to be found, and I'm told that to be found going to church on Saturday, and the students would go to study Monday to Thursday, skip Friday, go back on Saturday, and then Monday. But with the freedoms of worship, anybody is free to worship. When President Museveni came and there were elections, I remember they conducted elections on Saturday, and the SDF faith came up in arms and said this is unbearable. And to date, you can never have elections on Saturday. Now the issue of exams on Sabbath, I agree with you, we need a critical mass because it has been handled legally and we were defeated in court. We have talked to the head of state. The last time we had a meeting with the president of the Uganda Union and the other bishops of different fields that we have, and it's an issue that was raised. And still the president was like, we are talking about it, we are going to consult. But if the numbers were big, there are things that the legal approach failed to take, but that the political approach will take it head on. So somehow, I agree with you, the critical mass also affects us because you are in a parliament of 529, even if you brought it on the floor of parliament, how many are going to support you? You are just 7. In the cabinet now, we have only 1 who sits in cabinet, Honorable Babalanda, against the rest. So the critical mass is very, very important. Politics is for do or die. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, and I agree with you, there are those who take it that way, but it's not what it's supposed to be. I can also tell you that over 70% of members of parliament every term do not come back. So that means there are people who don't take it as a do or die, and just like I said, parliament is or politics is a sample of our wider society. The evils we find in society, we'll find them there, but we try to ensure that it's not a do or die. That's why I told you that even when you are abused, even with maximum provocation, as a Christian, what do you do? Those are times when you pray and you let God's will be done. So I personally have not gone through such. That is why I was able to reach a point and say, I am done with that. I can do other things. How did I reconcile politics and academics? And how you said some people would stop you. My mother would come when I was a student and tell me to choose between politics and academics. And she was this very, very strong disciplinarian. I would not say that I'm not going to leave, but I would ensure, and that brings me to how I was able to reconcile, because I didn't want to disappoint her, but at the same time, I was not ready to leave politics. So I knew that I will do my politics, but when time comes, because university politics, university academics is not like high school where you are supposed to be in class all day. I just make sure that I am there when I'm needed. I make sure I avoid the retakes.